Hi, and welcome to this episode of the Retirement Readiness Podcast. Today, we're talking about what it means to be in an employee stock ownership plan and how that might help in your retirement planning. Let's get started.
The Retirement Readiness Podcast
with Tim Regan.
With special guest Laura Rudzinski, presented by Prairie View Wealth and Tax Advisors. Live your 2-comma life.
So Laura Rudzinski, you're joining us today. Laura is, well, I guess if I'm completely honest, a friend, a aunt-in-law, a confidant, a comrade, all kinds of stuff, right, Laura?
Yes.
And so your background, though, and the reason we've got you on the show today specifically, so you've worked for the same company for a couple of years?
31.
And we won't say how young you were when you started because you're clearly still very young.
Yeah.
And so,
Thank you.
So over the course of those 31 years, they had this retirement plan that was called an employee stock ownership plan or an ESOP. And like, if I've got one of those, my understanding is that it means that you get to own stock in the company. Is that right? I mean, help me to understand a little bit of a flavor for that, or what your take is on
that's
that
correct.
deal.
So, it's actually our 20th year as an ESOP this year. So in June 30th of 2005 is when the ESOP started.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So it's our 20th year. So yes, the CEO at the time orchestrated. We had been sold to an investment company.
Okay.
So we were owned.
Which I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was the path.
We were owned by an investment company who had owned us for 2 years. They brought in a different CEO who was not in our industry or anything.
Yep.
So then they were preparing to sell us again to another investment firm. So they actually had brought in another CEO who is someone who worked at Smith Buckland many years ago and came back as the CEO. So he orchestrated then the purchase for the company, the employees purchasing it themselves.
Oh, that's cool.
So he orchestrated that whole thing.
Oh, that's really cool. So like, just a little background for anybody who might not be familiar. What many times will happen is when you have those companies that are privately held, meaning it's not traded on the stock market or those things. Some of the ways that you can, one of the ways that owner can sell their business is by creating this technical term called an ESOP, or an employee stock ownership plan. And that then, basically what they're doing is they're facilitating the sale of that business to the employees that are working there. And if I think about it correctly, like, you guys get some of that stock that's given every year. Is it like, what does all that look like?
Right. So at the time when the ESOP started, you were able to put whatever you wanted, whatever you had in your 401k, you could put toward the ESOP, whether that was all of it, half of it, a quarter of it, none of it. You're able to do that. So, and then moving forward annually, our 401k match goes into the ESOP as stock. So every year you get your 401k match, it goes into the ESOP. So consequently, a much more significant number of employees are actually owners of the company. Currently, we have 96% of the employees are owners because a lot of it because of the matching.
Yeah, which is really kind of cool that when they talk about employee owned, that's usually what they mean, right? Where the employees actually own the stock, versus there's some companies that have like a stock purchase plan, which now those are for like a publicly traded company, and you can buy stock in the publicly traded company at a discount when you're an employee. That doesn't mean you're an employee owned company. It just means employees can participate. But in ESOP, the employees actually do own the company. Right. And so as you were planning for your retirement, so you mentioned you've got the 401k and this ESOP plan. The ESOP's done well for you.
Yes.
So sometimes those smaller companies where you are an owner in that company, can perform pretty well. And it's probably outperformed your general market types of investments. Right. And how is that structure helped you and Rich? Well, I guess maybe let's tell a little bit about you, right? So you're married. Rich is your husband,
right?
Yeah,
yes.
And 3.
So we have 3 kids: Megan, Jenna, and Alex.
Yeah, not in that order, but clearly girls are more important than boys.
Megan
Alex and Jenna. Yeah. But it's never said that way. It's always Megan, Jenna, and Alex. Girls rank more than boys.
Yeah.
And so as you and Rich have kind of planned through your retirement, the ESOP really has been kind of that added bonus that has really helped that retirement look even better than what you guys had already done.
What's interesting about that, Tim, is when our CEO at the time was orchestrating the whole ESOP, his main focus, two main focuses, right? One, to be able to have the employees own the company so that we were in charge of the direction of the company, where the company was going and how it was going to get there. And then secondly was to create wealth. And what's interesting about that is when he was talking about that back 20 years ago, I'm like, create wealth? What do you mean? What wealth? You know what I mean? I really wasn't fully understanding of what that actually meant.
Yep.
I'm like, I want to be a part of this. Yes. And of course we talked to Tim. Tim's been our wealth advisor since then. So we talked to Tim about it and took his advice and counsel. But I just really didn't have a comprehension of when he kept saying it's going to create wealth, what that actually meant.
Yeah.
So it really has.
And like for you and Rich, like, we're not going to talk about your personal stuff, but when you talk about that, I mean, it really does mean the difference between having a comfortable retirement and having an even more comfortable retirement where you guys can go and do some of the things that you want.
And actually, it's the difference between being able to retire at an age that we want to choose versus having to wait,
even
until
longer to be able to do that.
Right.
Along with the added benefit that you feel like you own the company and you have a say and all of those kinds of things.
Right.
And so give me a little bit of a sense as you're putting that money aside, because there's pros and cons, right, to the ESOP. Mm-hmm. One of the downsides is, and part of the reason it worked out well for you is because the company's performed really well. But you have some concentration risk there too. Like you've got a lot of your holdings that are in one company stock that is not very liquid and all that kind of stuff. Walk through that maybe a little bit. Like, how do you guys think about that at all? Are you comfortable because it's performed so well? Like, what's your?
So I think, it's easier for me to be more comfortable with it because I'm working there at the company every day. Right. Sure. So I'm there every day and I know what we're doing and how we're doing it. And I'm listening. Our current CEO is obviously we're very transparent with all the financials. So I'm up to date on all of that. Yeah. Whereas Rich isn't. He's not sitting there in those meetings and listening to all that. So for me, it's much more comfortable. But, let's talk about when COVID hit, right? When COVID hit. So, the way that our company does, they come out with the price on, actually it's this week in April, mid-April.
So maybe we should talk about that for 1 second. We'll come back to, don't let me forget COVID, right?
Okay.
So like the way that ESOP works, all ESOPs, is you have times that are in the agreement that say, we're going to value the company this time of year. That value is good for the next 12 months. Anybody who wants to get out of the ESOP has to let us know by this date in order to get money by that date. Like there's all those things. So when you talk about kind of the valuation date, so you're coming up on the valuation date.
Yeah, the evaluation date is this week.
For this week.
Mid-April.
And so then as you're going through COVID, like how does that all play into
COVID, March 20th. So approximately 1 month, 3 weeks prior to our evaluation. Yeah. So that had a significant effect. The trustee had no choice but to give a lower evaluation because all of our clients, they really were significantly involved in in-person events. So that COVID was going to completely affect the way our clients
and for your business especially, right? Because so your business, you're in the business of kind of managing associations and that kind of stuff. And so for that value proposition for them, that's a lot of their value proposition, I'm sure.
Yeah. So that actually was the only year through the 20 years that the evaluation went down. That was the 1 year that the evaluation went down.
Which really, I mean, if I'm sitting in your shoes during that, not only am I concerned about, okay, what does this mean from a job position?
Right.
Do I have enough work? Will I have enough work? Will they need me? Are they going to downsize? All of that stuff. But then you add to that the added risk of the very company that might not be strong enough to keep me now is where I have a lot of my wealth. That kind of compounds things a little bit.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. And so when you think about that, obviously it's been a good trade-off for you. It's worked out well to your advantage. But how does that translate then into other decisions? Like, does the ESOP help you feel a little more committed to the company? Does it help you feel like you're plugged in there more? Does it not have an effect? I just out of curiosity, how's that playing?
I think for me, being at the company for 31 years at an executive level within the company, it absolutely has. That plays into it. Some folks that are younger still, as I was 20 years ago when we went into it, not understanding about the creation of wealth and what that means. But for me, for sure, every day that I'm working, I'm thinking to myself, I'm helping myself by helping our clients grow. You're helping yourself be able to grow your wealth.
Yeah. And so there are other considerations because of the timing of when you can take money out, when you can't, and then timing around when is this valued and all that kind of stuff. How has that worked in your mind with you and Rich and planning for retirement and all that stuff? Does that play a factor? Does it not? What's all that?
Yeah, I think it does, because every time we talk about it, Tim, we're like, okay, we got to get through. Once we get past the April date, then I'm in it for another year, it for another year. You know what I mean? So I think that has a lot to do with how we're going to decide, when we're going to
when does it make sense to retire?
Right, when it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And so because of that, so just some of the mechanics, once you're valued this April, that carries you for the next 12 months.
For the next 12 months.
And so if you like the valuation last year, and you're not sure about this year's valuation, then you're like, okay, maybe I should pull the plug before I do. Yeah, I got you.
What's nice about, and I don't know, I'm not, Tim, you're the expert on ESOPs. I'm not familiar with how other ESOPs work, but how our ESOP works, is that once you actually hit 55 years old, it's once you're in for 10 years, you actually have an opportunity to disinvest annually up to 20% of your stock. So you're able to do that. So it is an opportunity for some folks if they're feeling uncomfortable about where the company's going without having to leave the company, they can turn in some of their stocks and turn that over into their 401k.
Yeah. Which is important, because when we saw that where a lot of those rules came in, was around the time, I'll date myself now, when Enron happened.
Yes.
Right?
Oh yeah. Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, if you're not familiar, if you don't remember Enron, that was a case where many of those employees had their company stock in their 401k. It wasn't an ESOP necessarily, but it was in their 401k. And then when Enron went under, all of those people lost everything, retirement savings.
And that had a lot to do with, too, I think, the rules changing around transparency. So we're at our company, we know what the budget is, what the EBITDA is going to be. We know exactly where everything is going to be before. Now we don't have a say in how that's figured out, but we definitely are aware and before the budget is approved by the board.
You have a say in how you act at work, right? And how what rolls up. Well, and I think that a lot of this is, while an ESOP can be a blessing, it also brings a lot of extra planning considerations and some of those things. And I think that's really where, as people start to think about, should I get into an ESOP? What should I do with this? If you have questions, let us know. That's the world we live in.
Exactly.
We were fortunate. I've been fortunate just that Sarah and I have been married long enough that we kind of grew up at Smith Buckland together, right? I mean, Sarah and I have been married 27 years. You've been there 31. And so got to know it throughout that time. But to your point, a lot of those ESOP plans have similar characteristics.
Right.
And so if somebody's working with somebody that doesn't have an expertise in those, it's important to find the right advisor that has that.
Absolutely. Because you also then have the opportunity to purchase more stock also.
Yeah.
So Tim's been, invaluable for us. You've been invaluable for us, helping us make those decisions. Should we buy more stock? How our portfolio is balanced. So that's been, extremely helpful to have you.
And those are the key decision points, right? Just as you look at it, it's how much of my portfolio do I want in one company stock? How do I balance my 401k to offset the risk that's going on inside of that one company? Just all of those kinds of things. And so is if we shift off of the ESOP just for a minute, so as you and Rich think about, the whole retirement future.
Right.
Like, you guys have some pretty cool goals, right? And you want to do some pretty cool stuff.
Yep.
And
so we're excited about that.
It should be, right?
Yeah. And it's really, truly, as Tim said a while ago, because of this ESOP that we're able to make those decisions and able to have the opportunities to do some of the things that we might not have thought we were able to do in previous to the ESOP. So, what I said earlier, our CEO at the time had talked about creating wealth. I understand it now, right? Because it has done that for Rich and I in a way that we just were not expecting.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because even as we talk to business owners, a lot of times they don't even think about the ESOP option as a way to sell their business or to pull some liquidity out of their business. But it really is. I mean, it's a really cool way to do it.
I feel like, especially for folks in the company that would be at an executive level, you can't leave the company. You cannot leave the company because it really is something. It would be a significant decision, to leave because you're leaving that behind. Yeah. So it really does make you so much more invested in the company and so much more invested in the company's success because you have that and you're part of the company. You're owning part of the company, and it really does. I feel like it does make a significant difference on a daily basis, your mindset going into work every day and what you're contributing and understanding what you're contributing toward.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that from what I've seen, I don't know, I should maybe look up, there's got to be a study done on what longevity looks like in ESOP companies versus not. But when I talk to you and your friends at work, I mean, there's some longevity at that place,
exactly,
right?
Exactly. And it's funny because they say there's an association for everything. So there is an ESOP association. So I'm certain that they have that data, that data somewhere. But I am positive that ESOP has a significant, ability to keep people at their jobs longer. Yeah. There's no question about it, especially as you move up in your career.
And so if I hear you right, if you're young and you're in a company that has an ESOP, get started.
Get started immediately. Do not hesitate.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
It's a really good thing. And the company's transparent about it. And you're going to understand where they are financially and how they're growing and what the goals are. And you'll have an ability to affect that by the work that you do every day.
Awesome. Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about you. So 3 kids. 3 kids. And Jenna is
our youngest in college. So she's just finishing up her first year in college. So oldest Megan graduated college last year 2 years ago and, is still looking for that.
That's hard.
That job.
It's hard. We were just talking about that recently about, when you go to school and you come out, like, finding that first place to land is so hard. And then once you find it, it's like, then all of a sudden you don't know where you bloom into, right? Like you were lucky, you got that first job and you kind of stuck with it forever, right? But it's so hard.
Yeah, it is hard. And I just talking just about COVID, poor Megan was in the midst of all that, it was the end of her freshman year and sophomore year, junior year. So she did not have the ability to really do any traveling abroad or actually do any internships because there weren't any available during that time. So, she did have, a little bit of a,
it's hard. And you look at that, and the reason I bring that up is that you and Rich are not like you guys graduated from the Ivy League schools and have had these high powered jobs your entire careers. Like you guys have been able to have a really successful life, because you're doing good work. You're doing good work at good companies.
At good companies.
And that was able to,
exactly. So that made a big difference for us.
Well, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome, Tim. Thanks for having me. Yeah. I appreciate it.
Well, join us next time. If you haven't liked or subscribed to the podcast, please do so. Otherwise, head to pv-wp.com for more of our resources. Thank you.
See you later.
The Retirement Readiness Podcast with Tim Regan and Katie Umland. Presented by Prairie View Wealth and Tax Advisors. Live your 2-comma life. Learn more at pv-wp.com. And while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe to the Retirement Readiness Podcast on your preferred podcast platform.